Alexandra and James had been together since they were kids. They grew up in the same neighborhood and knew each other like the back of their hands. However, like many young people, they aspired to different things in life, not always realizing that their dreams could fundamentally change a relationship. Alexandra was an ambitious girl with lofty dreams and desires. Her world didn't fit within the poverty she grew up in. She wanted more: expensive dresses, cars, traveling, and luxurious gifts. She believed that to get that, she needed to be around the man who could give it to her. James was a sincere and hardworking guy. His life was about always trying to do things on his own. He wasn't rich, but he took pride in working to provide for himself and his girlfriend. But often he felt it wasn't enough to keep her. Every day, Alexandra became more and more frustrated with their relationship because she didn't have what she dreamed of. This created an increasingly tense atmosphere. After another scandal, when Alexandra openly stated that she wanted more, she decided to leave James. She met David, a successful young entrepreneur, and immediately turned her attention to him. He had the luxurious life she had always dreamed of. This decision came as a real blow to James. James took a long time to get over the breakup. He felt his world crumbling, losing not only the girl, but the very meaning of what he was doing. His life became an endless struggle. He started working multiple jobs, trying to earn money to change his life. He took on the job with a new determination. All he had to do was believe that in time he could do something significant to reclaim his world. It had been a few weeks since Alexandra had left James. He was still reeling from the loss, but he was ready to fight. He realized that nothing in life comes without effort, and he needed to change his fate. He began to work more than just a few jobs, but also started looking for development opportunities to build a career that could give him back what he had lost. During this time, James received support from his best friend, Marcus, who had known him since childhood. Marcus was a dark-skinned guy with a serious but friendly personality. He was always there for James, supporting him in his most difficult moments. Marcus was a little older than James, and his experience in life helped his friend not to get lost in this turbulent ocean of change. Marcus, unlike James, was more pragmatic. He always believed that if a person had a plan and hard work, they could succeed. His own business started small, and now he was already running a small construction company. He often advised James not to give up and to look for his own opportunities to grow instead of just wallowing in grief. "You need to start thinking about yourself, James, not what happened. It's still not too late. You need to think about your future," Marcus told his friend as he talked about his disappointment again. Marcus offered James some ideas for earning money, and gradually James began to work with him. Together they started working on projects, looking for ways to create something new. James was inspired by his friend's support, and despite all the difficulties, began to build his dreams. But even in the most successful moments, when everything seemed to be going well, in the depths of his soul, the pain of losing Alexandra did not disappear. Time passed, and James began to make gradual progress. He became more and more involved in the projects that Marcus offered him. They were small businesses, freelance assignments where James could prove himself as a specialist. He also decided to further his education by enrolling in a business management course. He didn't want to just be a laborer in someone else's enterprise. He dreamed of creating something of his own. Marcus, seeing his friend's efforts, helped him by sharing his knowledge and experience. He said that it was important not only to work hard, but also to be able to manage time and resources. Gradually, James began to feel his life changing. He realized more and more that hard work was the key to success, and that now that he was not wasting any time or energy, change was inevitable. A year later, James opened his own small firm, which focused on renovation and interior decoration. His first orders were modest, but the work was coming in and clients were starting to return. He was proud to say that everything he now had was the result of his own efforts. One day, as he was returning from work, he noticed a message on his phone from Alexandra. Her words were short but meaningful. "How are you? I hope all is well." James felt his heart twitch. He remembered how she had once been with him and how she had left for David, a wealthy businessman. Now that he was starting to achieve success on his own, she had decided to reach out. It was like a test for James. He thought for a long time about what to say. His sense of bitterness hadn't disappeared, but now, after all this time, he realized that her leaving had been a necessary step for his personal growth. Whether or not to answer was irrelevant. What mattered was that he was on the right track. In that moment, James felt that he hadn't gone through that period in his life for nothing. He became a different person, more confident, stronger, and independent. His business began to grow, and he was not going to stop there. When James started his company, he was full of optimism. But business is not always just about successes and happy moments. After a few months, James faced challenges he hadn't anticipated. Competition was fierce, and his company was still too young to attract steady customers. He faced financial difficulties, delays in deliveries, and problems with contractors. Despite this, James never gave up. He remembered how his life had turned upside down after Alexandra left, and how hard it had been to cope. He realized it would be the same with the business. If he wanted success, he would have to work twice as hard. Marcus continued to support him. He often told James that all startups go through difficulties, and it's important not to get discouraged when problems arise. "You didn't give up then. Why should you now?" Marcus used to say. These words have always been like a reminder to James that he is not alone in his journey. One day, at the hardest moment, when all seemed lost, James remembered how much he had come through this year. He knew that he was no longer the same guy who was full of doubt and fear. He had become more mature, determined, and confident. He decided to take a break to sort out his company's problems. He began studying new management techniques and looking for ways to optimize processes. Soon, his efforts bore fruit. He worked more efficiently with suppliers, expanded his customer base, and began to attract larger orders. A few more months passed, and James's company grew significantly. He was able to hire several new employees and offer them decent pay. Not only did he become more successful, but he also started helping other people and giving them the opportunity to grow. During this period, James realized that the main thing is not money or external success, but his inner development and ability to overcome difficulties. Even though his life was now full of stress and challenges, he knew that everything that happened to him only made him stronger. Several years have passed since Alexandra left James. His life had changed considerably. He had become a successful entrepreneur, opened his own construction company, and his financial situation was no longer a problem. James felt he had become stronger and more confident, but the memories of the girl he once dreamed of building a future with wouldn't let him go. He knew she had made her choice, and despite the pain, he accepted it. One day, as James was leaving the office, he happened to bump into Alexandra. It was an accident, but she immediately caught his attention. She was standing outside her expensive car, dressed in a stylish, elegant suit. There was a slight smile on her face, but there was something in her eyes that James couldn't understand. "James?" she said, and her voice was familiar but foreign at the same time. "Alexandra," James replied, not knowing what to say. He never expected to meet her again, especially in this context. She looked at him with some wariness, then said, "You've changed? You've become a different person." James felt himself inwardly realize how much he had changed over the years. He was no longer the same guy who had gotten over her leaving. He was a man who had made his life successful and independent. "Life teaches us, Alexandra," James replied, and his voice was firm. "But you seem to have changed too. How has life guided you?" Alexandra revealed that her life with David, with whom she had left James, had not lived up to her expectations. She noticed that the outward glitz and wealth hid problems that she couldn't solve. David was successful, but their relationship was not what she had hoped for. Emotional issues, lack of support, all led to her frustration. Despite the material benefits, she couldn't find true happiness. "You were right, James," she said. "The kind of life I was looking for is not truly satisfying." James heard her words, but his heart was no longer attached to this woman he had once loved. He knew he had a life of his own, and that everything that had happened was for a reason. It was an encounter in which he saw his strength and his accomplishments. Now he wasn't the guy who needed her approval. "You made your choice, and I don't regret what happened," he said calmly. "But I am grateful that it gave me the opportunity to become who I am now." Alexandra fell silent. Her gaze was filled with a mixture of regret and recognition.
After his meeting with Alexandra, James spent a few days thinking about everything that had happened. He realized that the meeting had been important, but not decisive for his life. He wasn't resentful of her, nor did he feel anger, though he might have felt it at some point. Instead, he experienced gratitude for the lessons this situation had taught him. Alexandra had left, and that had been the impetus for him to change. He had become who he was meant to be, and now that he met her again, he realized that her place in his life was part of the past. But meeting her pushed James to realize the importance of not only professional success, but also personal relationships. He realized that now that he had achieved what he once dreamed of, he needed to think about his personal happiness as well. James began looking for a way to bring more harmony into his life, searching for someone with whom he could build something real, without false expectations and illusions. With the support of Marcus, who was always there for him and gave him wise advice, James began to think about opening his heart again. He didn't want to go back to Alexandra, but he realized that his past and his relationship with her couldn't be forgotten. He had to move forward, learning to love and appreciate himself. One day, Marcus invited James to meet one of his acquaintances, Layla. Layla was a dark-skinned woman with a strong character and determination. She wasn't interested in luxury and money, which caught James's attention. She was independent, intelligent, and with clear goals in life like himself. At first, they met just as friends, but with each conversation they began to get to know each other more and more, and James felt that in her company he could be himself. Marcus noticed James starting to change, and one day told him, "You know, James, success in business is an important thing, but love and trust are even more important. I can see how you've become a different person. You deserve to be happy and loved, not just to be successful. Sometimes success isn't what we've accomplished, it's who we share it with." With each passing day, James felt more and more that despite his accomplishments, his life would be incomplete without a true and sincere relationship. He realized that he may not have been ready for love before, but now, years later, when he had become the person he wanted to be, he was ready to give himself a chance at happiness. After a few months with Layla, James felt that his life was taking on a new meaning. He was happy that he had found someone with whom he could share not only moments of joy, but also of difficulty. Layla was not only a beautiful and intelligent woman, but also a true friend. They spent a lot of time talking together, discussing their philosophy of life, their dreams and goals. All of this made James realize how important it was to have someone around to support you in all situations. However, with each passing day, James felt more and more that the success of his business required more and more of his time and effort. He was working 12 to 14 hours a day, immersing himself in the details of his company. Over the past few months, his business had grown significantly. He began to expand his team, open new branches, attract large clients, and his revenue increased exponentially. All of this success was a result of his hard work and passion for his business. But James realized that because of this, he was spending less time on Layla and their relationship. One day, while sitting in his office going over reports on a new project, James thought about his future. He saw that his company could grow into an even bigger business if he continued to work with the same intensity. But on the other hand, he knew that if he kept at it, he risked losing what he had with Layla. He decided that an important choice had to be made: to continue to be completely absorbed in the business or to find a work-life balance. He realized that it would be impossible to maintain his relationship with Layla at the same level if he continued to devote all his time to the business, but losing her would also be too great a price to pay for success in his career. James decided to talk to Layla. He invited her to the restaurant where they first met. This time, the atmosphere was a little more serious as he wanted to discuss his thoughts and decisions. "Layla, I know I've been spending a lot of time on work lately. My business is growing and it takes a lot of effort, but I want you to know that you are important to me," James said. His voice was serious but sincere. He continued, "I can't keep working like I have been if I want our relationship to progress. I have to learn to find a balance between what I'm building in business and what I'm building in my personal life. But you have to understand that I'm not ready to lose either one." Layla listened to him carefully, her eyes soft and her face calm. She understood that James was facing a difficult choice. She also knew that her support was an important part of his success, but she couldn't let him absorb himself completely into his work, leaving no room for a relationship. She said, "I understand, James. Your success is important, and I'm proud of you. But I want you to know that I want to be there for you, not only in moments of success, but also in the moments when you'll be there for me. We have to learn to work together, not separately, but you have to decide how you want to do that." Those words were like a revelation to James. He realized that his business didn't have to consume him completely. His relationship with Layla was as important as his accomplishments in the professional realm. It was his choice, and in the end, he decided to find the right balance that would allow him to both continue to build his career and be with someone who valued and supported him. After a long talk with Layla, James became more confident in his decision. He realized that he couldn't continue to live in a constant race for success, forgetting about the most important things: love, trust, and close relationships. His life with Layla was stable and happy, and this realization became a new source of strength for him. He decided to change his approach to business. James began looking for people he could trust with some of his work, so that he himself could spend more time on his personal happiness. He hired experienced managers and supervisors to help him set up processes in the company, making it more automated and efficient. James realized that success wasn't just about his efforts, but about building a team that would work with him, not for him. His decision to make the company more autonomous allowed him to focus on other aspects of life. He and Layla started traveling, spending more time with each other, getting to know each other better. James learned to find a work-life balance, and it began to pay off. He continued to develop new projects in his company, but now his work didn't consume all his time. Layla was there to support him, but now they both found joy not only in their successes, but also in simple human things: going for walks, going out to dinner together, relaxing. James began to realize that his happiness now lay in living in the moment and sharing it with someone he valued. In addition, after the business became more stable, James decided to pay attention to charity. He started a foundation to support young people from poor families, providing them with educational and career opportunities. This became his personal project, and he felt that in this way, he was giving back to the world what he himself once lacked. In this endeavor, James felt even more complete and fulfilled. Every day, he became more and more convinced that success is not only financial independence, but also the ability to stay true to himself and the people around him. James had reached a new stage in his life, and now he knew that not only career growth, but also personal happiness lay ahead of him. When James began to feel that his life was finally finding balance, he was faced with a sudden problem. His business, which had been consistently profitable for several months, was suddenly on the verge of collapse. One of his major clients, who had been bringing in a significant amount of revenue, had canceled their contract with his company. The reason was simple: Competitors offered more favorable terms, and James was forced to face the harsh reality of the market. Compounding the problem was the fact that several large investors who had backed the company began to question its prospects. James realized that in order to keep the business alive, he needed to find a solution quickly. He spent sleepless nights developing a strategy that could save the company. But his plans weren't just limited to work. He also had to maintain his relationship with Layla, who had been having a hard time seeing him consumed by the business all this time. Layla felt that James was going through a difficult time, and despite her independence and resilience, she realized that she needed to support him in this difficult moment. But at the same time, she couldn't stay in the shadows. Her own ambitions and dreams were unstoppable, and she was ready to offer James help. She decided to support him not only morally, but also to offer her help in solving his financial problems. "I know you're used to dealing with adversity alone, James, but perhaps we should join forces. You have the strategy, and I have experience in negotiations and investments. We could look for new ways to do business," Layla suggested. It was in that moment that James realized how much he had lost by trying to be strong and independent instead of opening himself up to help. He felt ready to trust Layla and let her be there for him, not only as a partner, but as an associate. He realized that together they could overcome any difficulties. However, the problems weren't just limited to business. James also began to notice that the pressures of his job were affecting their relationship. Layla was starting to feel detached, and James realized that he needed to act quickly to avoid losing not only the business, but also the harmony that he and Layla were creating. James was willing to do whatever it took to save the company. He and Layla began working together, developing new strategies, scouting for new investors, and bringing the right people onto the team. But he not only needed to solve the financial problems, he also needed to find a way to restore trust and harmony in his relationship with Layla. Even though the situation was critical, James felt that thanks to Layla, he was not alone in this ordeal. This was a new stage of their relationship, from a partnership in love to a partnership in business. James and Layla did everything possible to save the company. They found new investors, established relationships with clients, and optimized business processes. The crisis was overcome, and the company began to stabilize. James realized that delegating responsibility was the key to success, and thanks to Layla, he realized the importance of a team. Layla also confirmed how important it was for her to be part of the journey, and they were now not only partners in life, but also in business. James realized that true success is not just about the money, but the people around him. Now that the business problems are behind them, James and Layla have begun to build a future together that has room for love, work, and personal achievement. After James and Layla rebuilt the company, they decided to expand it by entering new markets and attracting new customers. However, as the business grew, so did new challenges. Competitors began to actively use aggressive methods, and new partners set tough conditions. This challenge was a real test point for their relationship and for their business strategies. James could feel the stress returning, but now he knew he wasn't alone in this. Layla, with her experience and confidence, was there for him, helping him cope. "We'll get through this, James, don't worry. You're not alone," Layla would say as they discussed new challenges. Together they were able to not only maintain their position in the market, but also strengthen their bond. James realized that the more he trusted Layla, the easier it was to handle challenges. These challenges only strengthened their relationship and made it stronger. After several years of hard work, overcoming crises, and successfully expanding their business, James and Layla can finally look back and appreciate all that they have achieved. Their company had become one of the leaders in their industry, and many colleagues and competitors now respected them for their success and stability. However, for James and Layla, the most important thing was not how much money they made or how many people worked in their company. The most important thing was how they had changed as individuals and as a couple. Their relationship had been through many trials, but now it was even stronger than ever. James looked at Layla and realized that she was not only his partner in business, but also his best friend, his support in the most difficult moments. Together, they had not only created a successful business, but they had built a life of harmony and happiness. We did it, Layla. We didn't just overcome all the difficulties, we learned to work together, trust each other, and build our world, James said, standing at the window overlooking the city they were now conquering together. Layla smiled, and her eyes brightened. And now we can move on, knowing that our strength is in ourselves, she replied. They stood side by side, confident that new horizons and opportunities lay ahead. But now they had not only wealth and success, but a true relationship that was the foundation of everything they had created.